Here's a city that's unlike any other in Asia Pacific. It's shortly after daybreak, and there's still hardly anybody walking around in the streets, apart from those who are scheduled to be here. This place runs to time and to a routine. Singapore is about to have another of its well-scrubbed, well-planned, and well-disciplined days. There's a long list of things that make Singapore unique in Asia Pacific. A huge percentage of people come to work by public transport. You can go anywhere at any time of the day and arrive on time. The train network was planned and built before the city expanded. Air conditioning cools the trains and the buses. Swift, punctual, spotless, and arty. They never get stuck in jams because huge government taxes mean it costs a fortune to buy and run a car. The city centre is a restricted zone. It costs money every time a car crosses the line. The fee is charged by infrared beam straight to a smart card in the vehicle. Very Singapore. This place runs according to plans and rules. Chewing gum in the street is a finable offence. So is crossing the road after the countdown is finished. Crime levels are low because punishments are severe. No food on public transport. Litter, £1,000. And the bureaucracy in every walk of life, massive. The pattern of land use in Singapore is completely different from all other Asia-Pacific cities. The tall buildings are concentrated in one area. There is only one central business district. This nerve center houses banks, insurance companies, and the headquarters of major multinationals. They use Singapore as their hub, their base, from which they work throughout Asia-Pacific and throughout the world. They like the fact that everything in the city is efficient, planned, and predictable. Business loves Singapore. Mamta Nanikran calls herself a yuppie. And for young, upwardly mobile people like her, Singapore is perhaps the prime location in Asia-Pacific. Just back from university in the USA, she's been offered a job with a large Singapore-based multinational corporation. Mamta likes the fact that the city's sense of order helps not only work, but everyday life.
I guess living as an individual in this country, you wake up, everything's taken care of. You go to bed at night, everything's taken care of. I think that's one of the best things about it. You never have to worry about, mass transportation. People get to and from work, no problems, no hassles. We don't have the traffic situation that we have in Bangkok because the government's taken active measures to make sure that doesn't happen. You know, people might gripe about it a little bit, car prices, but it's worked. Obviously it's worked, and roads are built so that people can get to and from places easily. If anything happens, superhighways are built. Everything is dealt with as it happens, you know, and they're always projecting, looking forward to see what the next problem may lie, looking forward to see how they can overcome it before it actually happens. I think we're going to see more people settling here in the region rather than elsewhere because all the infrastructure is here. Everything's here. This is going to be the base where people are going to deal with what's happening in the region.
The #1 music channel in the world.
In the long list of companies that have set up shop, one of the latest arrivals is MTV Asia. Young, expanding, high-tech, it's just the sort of operation that Singapore is trying to pull in. in order to hold on to its position as the nerve center for modern business in the region.
In the 1997 MTV Video Music Awards Asia Viewers' Choice Contest.
They were looking to be a media hub for Asia, and they actually invited a number of different broadcasters into Singapore about 4 or 5 years ago, and we took them up on the offer.
Recently, the Singapore Cable Vision has decided to set up a cable system which they're going to wire every household.
On MTV.
Singapore being a strong country with good infrastructure and communication, I am able to reach out to my producers and the viewers' needs through Singapore.
You've got an excellent phone system, which is just as good as in Japan or in Hong Kong.
There are no problems like traffic jams or problems getting through telephone lines. Singapore is very good in that sense.
Singapore is about 6 hours away from India, 4 hours away from Taipei, 3 hours away from Hong Kong, 3 hours away from Manila, and about an hour and a half from Jakarta, an hour from KL. You know, very, very close to all the key markets.
From this headquarters, MTV broadcasts to and manages their huge and varied market of 450 million people in Asia Pacific. At the center of it is a video player that takes masses of cassettes, all pre-programmed, to transmit at just the right moment in the right order.
Transmitting to Taiwan, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, China, and part of Korea.
The staff and VJs are recruited locally and from other parts of the region. The city pulls in the businesses and the people follow, enriching the mix that the place has always had. In the space of one sentence, they switch from English to Asian languages and back again. Very Singapore.
She's very mean. Takut tapi nggak jadi deh, udah mendingan gue cabut aja. MTV what?
The business of business carries on into the lunch break. The latest share prices are on view in the city centre. But Singapore has recognized that it's not just logistics that attract new companies. Another locational factor that's just as important is image, a lighter side to the life of the city. A high percentage of the city's population is under the age of 25. Singapore is recognized throughout the region as a trendsetter and as a society where one of the major attractions is its multiracial makeup. People's earning power is high by Asia-Pacific standards, and there's no shortage of places to spend money. There's a lot of appearance for appearance sake in Singapore. How about, on a business trip, a couple of nights in a hotel that looks like a space station? Yet the image factor is always backed up by practical considerations. Needless to say, perhaps, Singapore has the busiest and most user-friendly airport in the region. But it's the seaport that's maybe the most attractive transport feature to business users. Customers must book well in advance to get a specific time for their truck to arrive at the port terminal to collect or deliver a container. Everything the driver needs to know is digitized onto a card. Where to go in the port, at what time, how long he's got to complete the operation, name of vessel and departure time. Singapore not only imports and exports its own products, it brings in and redistributes stuff on behalf of all the Asia-Pacific region. After Rotterdam, it's the second busiest port in the world. The almost daily downpour comes in the early afternoon. The lush plant life along the motorways isn't the remains of the original natural vegetation. It's been planted to enhance the city's visual appeal. All the city's greenery is on a strict maintenance schedule. There isn't much about Singapore that hasn't been planned. Indeed, planning is one of the main forces that has created the place. Currently, the destiny of every square metre belongs to a grand design called the Concept Plan, due for completion in 2004. The plan decides where all new development will go, from housing to industry to new transport. And you simply cannot miss the activity the plan is triggering. The giant construction sites are scattered throughout the suburbs. In many places, this would be a recipe for chaos, but not here. No truck from a construction site is allowed to take mud back onto the road. A quick clean-up is compulsory. Very Singapore. Nearly all the workforce on the sites comes from elsewhere in Asia. Singaporean wage rates are good compared with many other countries, and a job here can be very attractive to people who come from countries with high unemployment, which is just as well when the living conditions are taken into account. The shacks provided by the construction companies are utterly basic. They're often improvised from waste wood and scrap metal pirated from old containers thrown out of the port. There is always electricity and basic cooking facilities, but the shacks are rat-infested. It's from places like this that the grand plan for the millennium is staffed. The main nationalities in the workforce are Thai and Indian. And everybody will tell you they know exactly what they're letting themselves in for. Homesickness, loneliness, and hard work. But it's worth it for the money. It's a deal. Very Singapore. Singapore's aim is to keep up the pace and stay ahead as the premier business and commercial location in Asia-Pacific. And to do that, it knows that the two biggest hurdles are firstly that space is fast running out, and secondly, that with its increasing wealth, the costs of production are shooting up. The answer to both problems lies a 45-minute ferry ride away, in a different country. Not that long ago, Batam Island in Indonesia was a chunk of tropical forest inhabited by a handful of people living a life light years away from the modern world. No longer. Five years ago, the potential for industrial development here was spotted jointly by Singapore and Indonesia. Singapore is rich and needs the space. Indonesia is poor and needs jobs. So here is a bizarre situation. What was once the middle of nowhere has suddenly become a hive of activity because it matches perfectly so many of the locational requirements for multinational manufacturing industries. Batam Island has very low wage rates, but lots of young Indonesians are prepared to take on the work, especially now that their country is facing its worst economic crisis for decades. It has cheap land, and it offers the companies good tax breaks. It has good access to the business resources of Singapore, and if the new country club is a carrot to get managers to Batam Island, in spite of the £10,000 joining fee, all well and good. Batam Island is what multinational manufacturing is constantly seeking out, the lowest cost location. Cheap labour, low costs. Such are the harsh facts behind manufacturing in the cutthroat competition of Asia-Pacific. Anna Nohuda works for an electronics multinational with its headquarters in the Netherlands. She lives in a company dormitory, like all the other young Indonesians, many of whom may have moved 4,000 kilometers from home to a job on Batam. Anna's reasons for taking a job here were the same as the vast majority of her colleagues. The experience is a stepping stone to improving her chances in life later on. And if in the meantime it means living in a dormitory far away from home, so be it.
Alasan saya datang ke Batam karena
my reason for coming to Batam was that I really wanted to get a job when I left school and help my family financially. There are some opportunities where I come from, but nothing like as many as here. I was happy to be given the job because there are hundreds of people looking for work on Batam Island. Frankly, when I first came here I felt, how can I put it, surprised, because all of a sudden there was no family around me. What's difficult here is that we all often feel homesick for our families, our parents, our friends and our villages. But a lot of my friends here have become like brothers and sisters to me.
Terus terang pertama kali saya kerja di sini ya, saya mendapat.
To be honest, I was over the moon when I got my first wage packet, but also confused about what to do with the money. Then I thought, apart from sending some of it home to help my parents, I'd put some of it aside because I very much want to continue my education to a higher level and open a business. I want to set up an introductory English course in my village and get my younger brother to run it.
Itu saudara-saudara saya sendiri, adik saya.
Next stop, City-Hall Interchange.
Back in Singapore, after office hours, it's either home by train or a drink and a meal in 2 or 3 specially designated entertainment districts. These are the spots where people like Mamta meet their business friends. Does Mamta think that Singapore's success justifies all the plans, rules and regulations that hang over everyday life?
I think there's lots of restrictions, but one reason that I think that is because I've had the opportunity to go away and come back. And I don't think I would have ever realized how restrictive it was had I not had the opportunity. I mean, really, there's no freedom of the press over here. They say there is, but you cannot really write something in the newspaper and it be anonymous. Your identity is always known. And once your identity is known, there's no hiding behind a facade, there's no hiding behind any kind of anonymity, you know. And you always have to be careful of that. Always knowing that they know who's saying what and they know where to find you. I firmly believe there may well be a mini revolution in the future. But I think that we can have that little bit more political freedom and freedom of expression while maintaining the security and stability of the country. And you can maintain both. I mean, I firmly believe that.